All right, in today's video, we're going to be discussing probability and statistics. More in general, we're going to be talking about sampling. But before we talk about sampling, wanted to go over some of the assignments that would be due over the next couple of weeks. The first being the last three assignments in Module 4. You have the Module 4 reflection, the Module 4 standard coin report, and the Module 4 portfolio project submission. And all of that is located in the class in Blackboard. You go to modules, you go to module 4 probability and go into assignments. And those three assignments are due by November 12th. The next assignments that would be due would be the module 4 My Math Lab homework and module 5 My Math Lab quiz. Again, you go into Blackboard for this course, you go to modules, you go to module 5, you go to probability and statistics and assignments. Those assignments for Module 5 are due by November 16th. Again, I don't believe we discussed any homework in the previous class session, which is why I'm giving you a little bit more time to work on the Module 4 assignments. If you turned it in already, the Module 4 assignments, if you turned that in already, great. If you didn't, you have a few extra days to turn that in. Okay, talking about sampling. Sampling is the selection of a subset of things or individuals from a particular population used to estimate characteristics of the whole population. An example of this would be Bryan and Stratton School. You have a school with students in it. You can break those students down in different groups or different categories to try to figure out certain things or to get certain characteristics. You could break students down by what year they're in. So if they're a freshman, sophomore, senior, or junior, and then you can even break it down further into that. You can break it down into major, if you're a business major, if you're health major, you can break it down so that you can find out certain characteristics about students. With sampling, you have some advantages and you have disadvantages. Some of the main advantages of sampling is that it saves time. And when you save time, you generally save money. Again, when you do sampling, you take a small subset or you take a subset of a larger population. So you don't have to go to each student or each person to find out certain characteristics about that whole population, that student body as a whole. You can, if the school has 20,000 students, you can talk to 1,000 students to try to find out characteristics. You can talk to 5,000 students, but you don't have to go to each student and try to figure out a certain characteristic. So again, sampling does save time, and usually when you save time, you save money. Now, a disadvantage of sampling would be there may be some bias. And if you're trying to find out, okay, the majority of students, if your hypothesis or your study hinges around you trying to find out how many students or if more students are in a health career versus a business career, if you're sitting in a health related class like coding, health billing coding, or something like that, your study might be biased and geared towards the health field. So again, it could be biased. If you want to find out if more students are taking business classes and you're sitting in an accounting class, well, more than likely it's going to be biased towards the business major because you're in a business related school. So again, sampling brings up a bias if you want it to. Another thing is it's not diverse. So again, with my example with the business student, if you're in a accounting class or a finance class, more than likely you're not going to have too many students that have a health or in the health related majors. So it's not as diverse. So those are the two main disadvantages and the two main advantages for sampling. There are a lot more, but those are the two that really stick out a lot. All right, we're going to talk about the methods to collect data. There are several ways to collect data, but we're going to talk about just five. The first one is the convenience sampling. This uses data that is easily available, and this is the one that's extremely biased. If we talk about my example with students that like football, if or people that like football, if you're standing outside of a football stadium and you have people walking into the football stadium, almost 10 times out of 10, if you ask the people going inside if they like football, almost 10 times out of 10, they're going to say, yes, I like football. Because, I mean, besides, if you're not going to the game to work and you're going to the game to watch it, you're more than likely going to be a football fan. And again, this convenience sampling is biased because you have the sampling data is readily and easily available. The next type of method to collect data is systematic sampling. This is where you obtain your data by drawing every nth item of, on a list or production line. So if you're working in a facility or and you're planning on testing the quality, you're going to take every 50th item, every 100th item to inspect and make sure that it meets the quality and the standards. So you're doing a systematic sampling because you're taking every nth item on the list to figure out what you want to figure out or to obtain that subset. Another example is with police officers. If they do the radar gun to see if people are speeding, they may say, okay, every 20th car, every 100th car, I'm going to do the radar and check and see if they're speeding. So that's another way of doing systematic sampling. The third method to do sampling is called cluster sampling. It's sometimes referred to as an area sample because it's frequently applied based off of where you live or where you are. It's geographic. An example of this would be something like with, not sure how many people are familiar with, but Erin Brockovich. She was she worked in the legal field. She wasn't a lawyer, but she worked in the field of law, and she took a huge utility company to court because a lot of citizens that lived in a certain community close to that utility company were getting a specific type of cancer, and they became more prone to cancer because the utility company was contaminating the drinking water. So these people were getting cancer, and they were trying to figure out why. And Erin Brockovich uh, did some studies, did some research, and she found that because this company was contaminating the water, these people that lived in this community, they were more prone to cancer. The fourth type of sampling would be stratified sampling. This involves dividing people into based off of their characteristics. So gender, race, religion, income. But if we talk about my example with students at the college, if we're in a specific if we want to know different types of things, we're going to break them down by their major, by what year that they're in, whether they're a student athlete. We're just going to divide them into different groups by the characteristics that they fulfill. It goes more into more than just gender, race, religion, but you can just break it down into different characteristics. And then the fifth type of sampling would be random sampling. This occurs if you draw a sample in such a way that each item is selected. So An example of that would be like a raffle. Everybody, if you're doing it correctly or ethically, everybody has an equal chance to win in a raffle if everybody's given one ticket. If you're given one ticket to win a prize or to win something, everybody has the same amount of chances to win something. So those are the five types of the five methods to 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 collect data or to gain some samples. Should we believe statistical studies? So it can be real tricky to get an unbiased sample, but it's very important to have integrity with each study. Many people that do studies, they get it wrong, which is why you should be very alert and cautious when you hear certain studies because you can be very biased. To find out whether you should believe the statistical study, you need to try to answer questions. What's the goal of the study? Again, if we want to find out how many students are majoring in, or you want to say that more students are majoring in the health field versus the business field, well, we're going to go to a college and we're going to get a sample size of different students. You're not going to just go to certain classes and say, okay, I'm going to go to a health related class and then just do my sample. You want to get a broad population to figure out are more students going into the business field or going into the health field. So that's first two questions. What's the goal of the study? What's the population under the study? The third one is, was the population clearly and appropriately defined? Again, you want to go into different classes, possibly more than just business related classes, and you go into health related classes. You want to go into a class that has a nice assortment of majors in it. And then the fourth thing is, what type of study was used? Are you using the convenience sampling, the stratified sampling, the cluster sampling, or a random sampling? What type of study are you using to gather your data? All right, so that's the brief discussion I wanted to have on sampling. Do your journal entry. Again, it's what you learned in today's class. Is there anything that you would like to review in next week's class? It has to be at least 50 words, and the subject line should be Math 201 with today's date and journal entry.